Hey everybody, welcome back to Hard Intentions YouTube channel. This is Mitch. And also we have hardintentions.com where we sell hoodies. Well, excuse me, we did sell some hoodies. We sell t-shirts, artwork, prints of my art, stuff like that. So please check in with that later if you get a chance. hardintentions.com. I want to pick up where I left off on the tattoo story. You know, I left off in Donovan my first time around. So, excuse me, this chair's acting stupid, making quite a bit of noise. So, before I left Donovan, I sailed up with this guy named Filthy Frank from Highland Park, and he was a tattoo guy. And I did some tattoo work on his back. You know, Frank, he was pretty cool. You know, later on, you know, he got out and came back, and I heard he was tattooing some other prison. He made enough money to buy himself a motorcycle. You know, when he got out, I thought that was a pretty cool story. But Frank was a skinny guy. He was cool, you know, and he used to tattoo writing. I'm not real good at writing. I don't like doing writing. I tattooed mostly artwork stuff, you know. But Frank could do writing really well. And so I had a homeboy show up, man. He was a younger man, and he was a prospect, and he wanted some tattooing on his collarbones, you know, and some writing. I was like, man, you know, I wanted to do it, but I'm like, dude, I don't want to mess you up, you know. I can tattoo writing, but I'm not good at it. So anyway, I took him in the cell. I had old Filthy tattoo it on him. You know, I put Mighty Whitey on him. So we sat around the cell, drinking coffee, listening to punk rock music, Bad Religion. You know, had a pretty good music set up at that time, you know. So it was pretty cool, you know, because I transferred right after that, and he was going to a level 2 or a level 1, and so I haven't seen him since. It was cool that I got to meet him and spend a little time with him and get him a tattoo from my celly, you know. So that's what tattooing's about, you know. It's about stories, you know. You get experiences, man, in the tattoo thing, you know. It's not just about money, and it's also the experience of it, you know, the people you meet and the things you do. So anyway, after that, I moved on to Corcoran, you know, and man, Matt was there. He was my celly in Donovan, so I had started some tattoo work on Matt, and so I moved Matt in, you know, and I started tattooing on him. I had a job where I could get epoxy and that kind of stuff. I made myself a nice little tattoo machine, and I told Matt, look, you know, there's no ink there, you know, so we had to make our own ink. And so I said, hey, Matt, you're going to burn that baby oil, man, when I'm not here, when I'm at work or whatever. And when I come home from work, you know, he would have the soot already, cell cleaned up. I'd have to smell that shit. And I'd make the ink, you know, we started tattooing. So what I did was I finished his arms, and I did his back, and I went down and did his legs, both legs, back, arms, fully sleeve, you know, short sleeve, fully blasted. And man, people were on me in Corcoran to tattoo on him. You know, once they saw Matt, they were like, dude, I want to have some work. That's the way it is in there. I don't know how it is out here because I don't tattoo that much. I live up here in the mountains, so not a lot of people are asking me to tattoo on them. I did tattoo one guy here. I gave him a short sleeve. It came out all right. But yeah, in prison, you start doing good work and people are on you. But I hated tattooing in there at that time because I had to use that fake ink, you know, that homemade ink. And I did do another tattoo on somebody there. Homeboy Oogie had this big, his whole back was the head of a bike, just the face, you know, and the helmet, hair, beard of a Viking. It was huge. The thing was, you know, it was monster head, you know. Say, hey, homeboy, I want you to finish my back, you know. And, you know, Oogie was in gang, you know, prison gang and all that stuff. But he was my homeboy, and he was always getting in a wreck. We'd bail him out because he was, you know, he was a good dude. But anyway, I did that Viking, you know, on Oogie's back, and came out pretty good. He liked it. And so later on, you know, he ended up going to the hole, and there was a guy back there talking some smack about me, you know, because that's what guys do. You know, when they're not around and you can't get to them or they can't get to you or whatever, they like to talk shit. So Oogie got out of the hole, and he told me, you know, he told that guy, hey, check this out, fool. How about we sell up, man, and I'll handle you. You know, and the guy peed on himself. So I liked Oogie. He was a good kid, you know. And so while I was there, too, I got Sonic Hedgehog. I did a hedge. He's from the valley, you know. I did a big Sonic Hedgehog on the back of his calf, and so I also did his back. I put Boba Fett. I put the Wolverine, Storm, and Cyclops from the X-Men. I put spaceships, you know, because it was like a little outer space thing shooting lasers at each other, and it was pretty cool. It was artwork, you know, it was different. People liked it, you know. It was unusual type of tattoo work to see on the yard, you know, superheroes, you know. I said, yeah, you're the super anti-hero, you know. So it was Hedge, you know. And like, I don't tattoo faces. I don't like to tattoo necks, hands, heads, faces, all that kind of stuff. And so this one dude, he was from Richmond, I think, little dude. You know, he was just on me to tattoo his face, right? So I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And he went out and got his forehead tattooed. So, you know, once he did that, I was like, you know, all right, I'll do your face. So I tattooed a demon on the side of his face, and then the mouth went into the mouth of the demon, nose, you know, it was kind of unique tattoo, but I didn't want to do it until once he started getting his face tattooed. I was like, all right, I'll do it, you know. But later on, he ended up getting his whole head and his face tattooed, and you know, he was out there. So that was my one and only facial tattoo. But yeah, that was my trip to Corcoran, you know. And then from Corcoran, I went over to Lancaster, and you know, I didn't really do a lot of tattooing there. I was on Sea Yard for a while. They call it Jurassic Park. And I had a celly there. I was a homeboy Jack, you know, so I did do some work on Jack. I did his chest, a little bit of arm work, and, you know, he had some real ink, which was cool. That was cool. His work came out nice. I did like a chick with lightning coming out of her eyes. The lightning went over to the other side of his and down, kind of ties everything together. That's one thing about tattooing, my style of tattooing, a lot of guys in prison is, you don't want to have a bunch of patchwork, like a tattoo here, a tattoo there, a tattoo there. You know, from a distance, man, it looks like you got a bunch of dark splotches on your arm, you know. A lot of guys call it traditional tattoo work now, and I think it's called, you know, shitty tattoo work, personally. You know, I see there's a million tattoo shops out here, and not all of them know how to fucking tattoo. They don't know how to draw, so they call it traditional. That's my take on it. You know, I think if you're going to get like fully tattooed, you shouldn't have a bunch of patches tattooed all over you, tattoo here, tattoo there. They should all flow together, you know, and that's one thing that I kind of developed over the years in prison, was how to make things flow and look right. I think a lot of these tattoo shops out here are full of shit. But anyways, I did Jack's hood and his arms, you know, and then I saw him later on in San Quentin many years later, almost 10 years later, man. He was still walking around flashing his, yeah, Smiley did this, you know. So we were cellies, you know, went through some shit, so it was cool. It's another experience that's pretty positive. Living with a homeboy, tattooing on him, you know. And it was nice to see him all those years later and see that he was still proud of his tattoo work and flashing it. And yeah, so after Jack, I really didn't do a lot of tattooing there. I had some other guy, I did a little tattoo work on him, man, and then he turned out to be kind of a lop, man. I got really, I booted him out. So, and I transferred on down to Donovan for the second time. You know, my points went down to level 3, and I went to Donovan, and you know, I had this celly. Well, I had a few cellies, but I did a little work here and there. But the main thing I did at Donovan that second time I was there. Now you got to remember, man, I was burnt out on homemade ink. But you know, there was a homeboy on the yard, and Jimmy, and he was kind of loud. You know, he'd go out in the yard and tell dudes, hey, you know, F you, and he'd get in their face and tell them what he thought about them. And he was a healthy guy, you know, he had 70 to life or something like that. He didn't give a shit. And them dudes, you know, they would talk about him behind his back, but they never, I'd see him get in their face, man. They wouldn't bust a grape. But he liked to make wine and burn it off into alcohol and sell it. And he liked to stay drunk and loaded, smoking weed, snorting crank, whatever. That was his deal. I didn't really know him. I checked him out. I'd say hi to him, whatever, on the yard, and chat it up, and one day I came home, man, and you got to remember, I didn't like having cellies, so I would take fly-by-night guys out of reception. They'd be in my cell for a couple weeks, a month, and they're gone. And so that way I can maintain a single cell for, a month, 2 months, whatever. I'd hooked up with the clerks, man, so if they would keep my cell open as long as possible. But, yeah, so I come home from work, man, there's Jimmy's in my cell, and I think, shit, this dude, right? But, anyways, he tells me right off the bat, he goes, hey, look, man, I like to make wine, I like to party, this, that, and the other. He goes, but I know you're a lifer, and I know you don't get loaded, so I'm going to respect that, and I'm not going to be making wine or any of that shit in your cell. And I was just like, wow, he's like, you're a lifer, so. And so I checked him out for a few weeks, and he was like, I'll be trying to find my own cell so I can make wine, but in the meantime, I'll be here. And I was like, that's cool. And once I seen how he was living in the cell, he was very respectful and shit, man. I was like, hey, cool, I'm going to tattoo this fool. So I did one sleeve and on his opposite leg. So he has one whole leg sleeve down and one whole arm sleeve down. And, we were making homemade ink, man. And one night we were up burning the baby oil. And I used to get a sheet and get it wet and put it over the toilet, because you clean the toilet to catch the soot, right? I'd drape it over the toilet and then shape it up to the vent so the smoke would go up the vent and out, right? And somehow, man, the fire got loose under there burning. They caught the sheet on fire for a second, We're like putting the sheet out, and then the grill gate opened. This is like 2 a.m, man. And the grill gate opens, and there's a cop comes in to do count, and I'm like, oh shit, our cell was so full of smoke, man. And luckily the guy went in the office and hung out for a while before he did count. So by the time he did the count, it was all the smoke was dissipated. But for a while there, we were like, oh shit, man, we're gonna have to deal with this. It was gonna be an issue with the night man, but yeah, it wasn't. So. Yeah, I tattooed Jimmy that second time around Donovan, and really I didn't do a whole lot of other tattoo work. Donovan at that time had shut down the hobby. So when I got there, I had a free staff get my art supplies and everything. And I didn't really do a lot of art because there was no way to really mail it home. And I was planning on going to San Quentin, where they had a hobby. So took me a couple years, I got my points down to level 2, and I did end up in San Quentin as a level 2, and I was kind of happy about that. So I got to San Quentin, I got my hobby stuff, I got my art shit and everything, and this guy Jimmy, JR, he had a bunch of cigarettes all the time, always wheeling, dealing tobacco, and up to that point, I was really like, I didn't want to mess around with the tobacco. It was illegal and there's money in it, but I was just trying to stay out of the mix, And so Jimmy's like, hey, I want to get sleeved. I heard you're the shit. Because there were guys there that knew I tattooed, And so I'm like, well, I don't like to tattoo unless I got a tattoo gun made certain way. So he introduced me to this cat, worked in the machine shop, man. That guy made me an aluminum tube with bronze tips that were interchangeable, so I could use it, take the tip out, clean the tube out, sterilize the tip, reuse it. And a brace, aluminum brace with a set screw, and I had my wheel hooked up the way I liked it with an offset post, and I would just hose clamp that brace on there, and it just looked, nice. And so I did Jimmy's work with that, JR, and he wanted unusual stuff, like he wanted a frog. I put some frogs on with leaves and flowers, and some other animals and shit, he was just like, he wanted different stuff, he didn't want like skulls and demons and shit. So it was kind of fun. It was like refreshing to be able to tattoo that kind of stuff, and people were tripping out, And then I was pretty much done with his tattoo work, and then I got into a little run-in with this cop named Goad, Now Goad was a strange cop, man. Down in Industries, he would like drill holes in the shower partitions and hide behind, look through the peephole at guys showering to see if they were making any dope transactions or weapons, you know. And he was hiding in a tree one time, peeping in the locker room. A guys got out of the shower or whatnot, and he fell out of the tree and broke his arm. I mean, that's the kind of cop he was. He's just a way out dude, man. But he hit my house, you know. And, you know, if I wasn't tattooing, I'd have that stuff in my house, but I would have the barrel or the tube would be stuck in, you know, all my pencils and everything, and then the brace would be somewhere, and the needles would be somewhere, and the motor would be somewhere. And, you know, theory being, you know, if they found one part, they might not know what the other part was, and San Quentin was pretty loose. You could have a lot of shit in your cell, but that dude Goad went up to my house and just turned everything upside down. My art supplies were all over the floor, and he found every single piece of that, man. I was like, damn, you know, that son of a bitch. And in a way, I was kind of relieved because it gave me a reason to not be tattooing, you know. It's like, they took my stuff, and I don't want to go through this shit of making another you know, tattoo machine. But anyways, I was pretty pissed off. He really messed my cell up. And I seen him later, and he tried to friendly up with me. They ended up firing that dude. They forced him into retirement. But he goes, hey, man, that's the nicest tattoo machine I ever saw, you know. And, man, that's like street stuff. And he goes, you brought that with you, didn't you? I'm like, what? And he goes, you brought that here when you came from another place, right? And I'm like, yeah, sure, you know. I was, you know, if that's what he wanted to believe, that's what I let him believe. So he told me he was going to put it in the San Quentin Museum out front. They got a museum, I guess. I don't know if he ever did or if he kept it or whatever. But, you know, that guy was an asshole, and he really pissed me off. So I didn't tattoo for a while there. Then I ended up getting this celly, you know, Scotty from Orland. And Scotty was just a really good dude. I had tobacco coming in, so I talked Scotty into letting me tattoo his leg in color. And I hadn't done any real big color work. I did a little color on Jimmy's tattoos and Donovan. But so what I did was I had 17 colors sent in, you know, with some tobacco one time. And I did Scotty's whole leg in color. And it was just awesome, man. I mean, I had like this devil dude, all orange and reds, you know, and out of his palm was like lightning shooting all over, and it was blue, and it was just awesome, dude. I did a big purple dragon head on his foot, and you know, what I would do is I would get the needle, you know, it wraps around the post, little pigtail comes out, and then I would take, I had an 8-track motor somebody gave me, so I would get shorter needles, and I got some dental floss, a wax dental floss with a wax coating. I would wrap that around the needles. I'd get them flush up, right, so that way I want them. Then I'd wrap them super tight with that dental floss and tie it. And it would pound the ink in a lot faster, you know. That's the whole theory about multiple needles, is it pounds the ink in faster. You know, everybody thinks single needle tattoo works great, and it is, you know, for some things. But for some things, you want to get that ink in there fast. The faster you get the ink in there, the less damage you have to the skin, and the better the tattoo comes out. So what I would do is I would do the tattoo, and then I'd take it apart, clean the needles, sharpen them all up, and then tie them back up again, you know, with the dental floss. And that's how I did the ink in Scotty's leg. Scotty got out and said his homeboys told him it's the best work they ever seen, you know, which was cool. But Scotty ended up passing away. One of his homeboys gave him some methadone pills to take because he couldn't sleep, and he ended up going to sleep and not waking up. So that was kind of sad because he was a really good dude. I really liked him. He had my back 100%, man. And I just yeah. But anyways, I got busted with tobacco and shit, you know, and I went over to Soledad. They kicked me out of San Quentin. They said the informants didn't want me back in the building. So at Soledad, I didn't do any tattooing. Let me think. Yeah, I don't think I did any tattoo work there. You know, mostly I just focused on my paintings. The guy who got me into painting was there, Danny, and they didn't have any hobby left there. You could get like paper in your package, so I got some 11 by 15 watercolor paper, and I was doing motorcycle paintings on that, and which my mom ended up losing. But anyways, I did a lot of painting there, and I started my T-shirt patterns. I painted some of them, did most of them in pencil, right? And there was this Mexican cop there. He was all tattooed back. He was a youngster. He goes, "Hey, dude, I collect T-shirts," and he goes, I would buy those. If you print those on the streets, I would buy them. He goes, "I collect shirts." So that really got my nose open for doing T-shirts, and I started doing patterns, and I didn't do a lot of tattooing. You know, I ended up with valley fever there, which really screwed my lungs up. I lost 60 pounds in 2 months, man. It was ugly. So they classified me high risk medical and sent me over to CMC West, and I had some homeboys there, and I did a Dago on one of them's stomach when he got out of the hole, and I had another homeboy. I did his hood. You know, he was my bunkie. So I did his chest, and I was like, man, I didn't want to do it. I got the motor hooked up the way I wanted it. I like to show off too, There was some Mexican cats tattooing there, man, but that place, there's like, I lived in a 90-man dorm. I could never get out of that 90-man dorm into a 45-man dorm because I just wasn't that kind of guy, I guess. But they would go in the day room and start tattooing, man, and within 10 or 15 minutes, the cops would come in the side door and through the front, and raid them, man. And it was just, it was ugly. Them guys couldn't tattoo for more than 10 minutes at a pop, man, if somebody would go tell on them, And that was the mainline yard where they were politicking all like they're, hard as a rock and twice as solid. But guys are telling, you couldn't tattoo, you couldn't wheel and deal cigarettes, you couldn't do shit there, man. So I was like a little paranoid, but I wanted to hook homeboy up, so I did his hood, I did his, I did like a pinhead from that movie, I forgot the name of the movie, but it's a horror flick, But I did that, the whole side of his hood, one side at a time, I did it in like hour and a half, 2 hours. And people were like, man, dude, that dude works fast, But I went in the day room and flipped the benches around where I could get at it, and I just drove that shit out. And I'm like tattooing, looking out the window, and I was paranoid. Because by now, I'm figured guys are going home. I want to get the fuck out. So, yeah, it's about the last tattoo I did in prison, yeah, it was JR, my cellie, my bunkie, actually. And he was a crazy little bastard, but he really appreciated that tattoo work, man. And I had good memories from that as well. And of course, after that, guys wanted me to tattoo on them. I was like, I'm cool. No amount of money's worth jeopardizing me going home. One thing I did forget to say was that when I was in Tracy, around, 90, 91, I started writing a story, about tattooing in prison. I had read stories in prison about tattooing in prison, and it was all about where we get our, we use these kind of motors, and this is where we get them, this is where we get our needles, this is where we get our ink, this is what we do, and I was like, that's cool, but they were giving up game, man, on where, where they got all their shit and what they used and all that kind of stuff. So I want to write a story about tattooing in prison that was more about what tattoos meant to people and what it meant to me and what it was like to tattoo and why I tattooed and all that kind of stuff. And so I would write, a few paragraphs. I'd write like 5 or 10 pages, and I'd send it out to this chick in San Francisco that tattooed in the shop, and she would edit it and send it back, tell me what she thought was good, what was bad, and I'd rewrite it, send it out back and forth. We did this for like 6 months. And then she's like, hey, this draft right here is cool. So I had it typed up, and I shot it to her with a bunch of photographs, and she had the connection, with Tattoo Review magazine. So this issue of Tattoo Review magazine, they printed this story. Tattoo Review, issue number 29. There we are, 29. There's a tattoo story in there. That's me. Wait, that's me and Tracy with Damien. And then over here we got Joe. That's my story. Tattooing on Main Street, And it's like 3 pages. There's the rest, But it was quite a story, and to me it was quite an accomplishment. And if you get this magazine, I think my wife said you could pick it up on eBay.
There's one I saw for $9.95.
Yeah, one on $9.95 on eBay, and I don't know about Amazon, but it's an old magazine. It's from 1992, so to me it was quite an accomplishment. And you know, I had planned on getting out and tattooing out here in the world, but unfortunately, I haven't done a lot of tattooing out here. I did a few guys here and there. A lot of guys have asked me to tattoo on them, and I'm all for it, but I do it at my house, so it's kind of, people have to be serious about it. If people are willing to come up the hill here and get tattoo work from me, I'm willing to work on them. Just know it takes me a minute because I got paintings to do, and then I have to do your tattoo patterns up, and I have to know where they go, what you want, how you want it. We'll work all that out, man, and the price, we could do it. But yeah, so that's my tattoo story. And hey, look, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. I want to thank all our Patreon donators. You guys are great. And I want to thank everybody who ordered hoodies when we had our hoodie campaign going. Anyone who's ordered anything off our website, I don't care if it's a $1 sticker, a $25 shirt, a print, I don't care, man. You guys are fantastic. You're validating a dream and letting me know I'm on the right track, and I just want to thank you guys very much. Another thing I want to tell you, man, is this virus is serious. It makes people sick. It's very contagious. I think that's why they're taking it so serious. More people die from the flu than die from this virus, but this virus spreads faster. So please be safe. Don't venture out into the world beyond your domain unless you have to, because, it's a serious deal. I don't want to see any of you guys get sick. And when you go out of your house, come back, wash your hands, soap and water thoroughly. Say your ABCs twice while you wash your hands. And sing happy birthday, either one, right? Yeah, just be safe, man. I don't want to see anybody get sick, and I definitely don't want to see anybody get this shit and die, especially people who are watching my channel and support my vision. You only live once, right? So take care of your health the hard way. Thank you. Bye.